We're on to shout outs and rants. And Dean Treanor was going to be a favorite of several of us, but we're going to cede that one to Ms. Woody because the letter he wrote was just so outstanding. So we'll go in the same order. Karen Woody, Karen Moore, Matt Kelly, and I'll back cleanup today on the shout outs and rants. Karen Woody, what do you got?
As you said, I was going to echo Matt and his shout out to Dean Treanor. And I can say this as an alum of Georgetown Law, but also just as an academic, as someone who's in an institution of higher education and seeing these letters fly around and see the anxiety on the faces of a number of people in charge that this could even, that we've gotten to this place. But you're exactly right. Dean Treanor spared, yeah, I think you're right that it was very politely just scathing and down to the, you're right, interim, the use of interim in relation to the position that Ed Martin holds more than once in this. But I think the import of it is clear and also beyond just critical for everyone to recognize. Georgetown University is a private university that is, and he, as Treanor points out, a Jesuit institution that is founded upon the principles of diversity in the sense that it always has appreciated and tangled with ideas that are different and to people of different faiths and culture. And he mentions that this is a moral and educational imperative to have that discourse. And what I think actually is worth mentioning, that I don't know if we've said this as clearly yet in this podcast, but that the reason he's writing this letter is because Ed Martin said he would not hire anyone from Georgetown Law if this curriculum existed and that they had been trained in such a wildly left-wing institution such as Georgetown Law. So if there's any actual discrimination here taking place, is it this refusal to hire any Georgetown Law grad to the DC U.S. Attorney's Office is already completely bananas. That already is sort of beyond a shot across the bow. And so I think the letter responds in kind in that sense. And he also mentions this isn't, not that it matters, but it's also Georgetown Law. This isn't some community college down the road. This is Georgetown. And he points out we are of the preeminent legal institutions in this country. And so that you would actually swing at us as maybe seeming as violating some constitutional right. And he's, I think, if anything, is saying you, sir, are violating a constitutional right here in this case. So shout out. I'm saddened that this is something we have to hold up as sort of this paragon of bravery or something this week, when it just this should be, I think, a settled principle that this is not something anyone should stand for. And shout out to Dean Treanor for carrying the water on this one. But like I said, I hope this doesn't seem like he is at all an outlier, because he shouldn't be.
Karen Moore, you've got a high bar.
I do, but that's such a positive statement and right in my backyard. But what is also happening in my backyard are so many federal employees, and I know it's across the nation, but I am in the Washington, D.C. metro region, and I cannot even count now the number of conversations I've had with people trying to make introductions, trying to provide advice. But I suppose sometimes the only thing I can really do is provide an ear, some sympathy, a big hug. And they're just some really amazing people who have dedicated themselves to public service, who are now finding themselves just not just mistreated, but trying to pivot into a different direction in their lives. And I know Hema Lomax is on the call, and I just want to give a shout out to Hema because she has really made an effort not just to put herself out there, but to provide resources to people. Really, I am thinking about all these amazing people. I really hope that people land where they need to land, that their dedication to public service not only doesn't go unappreciated, but also comes back to play in their lives in a better way. And anything that I can do, short maybe of contributing my mortgage payments, I just leave myself out there as a resource.
Kelly.
Since I have already ranted enough on this podcast, I'm going to switch gears to trying to give a shout out to just one of the many people in this world who slowly, steadily, consistently did a good thing. And I just wanted to note the passing of an Australian man by the name of James Harrison, who died earlier this week at the age of 88. But his big claim to fame was that when he started giving blood in 1954, while he was a teenager, I think, they discovered that Mr. Harrison, for reasons unknown, had a genetic profile that his blood churned out a large volume of very important antibodies called anti-D. I don't really know exactly what anti-D does, except it helps pregnant women who might have the baby having a conflicted RH factor in mother versus child. And that can be a big problematic thing. And I had a sibling where that was a big problematic issue with my mother when she was carrying my sibling to term back in long ago. But his blood was able to address that difficulty. And so therefore his blood was quite valuable. So for the next 64 years, while he could donate blood as often as he could, he did, and he donated blood 1,173 times over the course of his life until finally in 2018, the Australian authorities said, "We love you, but you are now too old. You should not give any more blood." And he would have if he could have. But he probably made a he affected millions of lives over the course of his 64 years of donating blood. It's just a great story of how people can improve other people's lives just for the sake of doing the right thing. And he did it week after week, month after month, year after year. And we should all take note of people like him who are doing the right thing quietly, consistently. They're the ones who make this world a better place. And so did he. And thank you, Mr. Harrison. And good luck wherever you may be now.
I'm going to go international for my shout out, although not very far. I'm going to go north of the border, and I'm going to give a shout out to the Quebecoise. And a little history lesson is in order. In Quebec, English speaking descendants of English settlers controlled the province with an iron fist until the mid 50s. And there was actually a fight at a Montreal Canadian hockey game. Was the first time the French-speaking Canadians of Quebecois, who are of Quebec, who are in the majority, began to coalesce around a feeling that they were different. And that feeling went along for 20 years until René Lévesque, who is the prime minister of Quebec, or became the prime minister, threatened to take Quebec out of Canada. And since that time, there's been a very varying tensions between the French-speaking Canadians in Quebec and the English-speaking Canadians in Quebec and the rest of the country. One Donald J. Trump has managed to change all of that. And as the example I would give you, I do a podcast with two English-speaking Quebecers on science fiction. And they both told me for the first time ever, they heard French-speaking Canadians at a Montreal Canadian hockey game sing the Canadian national anthem in English. And they said they never thought they would hear that in their lifetime. And the Quebecois are saying, we may be Quebecois, but we're Canadians. And elbows up. So elbows up to the Quebecois.